They attacked the human camp. The pet was on guard duty. No one got out. Officer Mack Reynolds squinted at the alien landscape through the porthole of Outpost Zeta-12. A prefabricated collection of modules that some pencil pusher back at command had optimistically labeled a strategic interspecies research facility. In reality, it was 6 metal containers bolted together on a rock that orbited a forgettable star on the edge of contested space. Not exactly the glamorous exploratory mission he'd signed up for. Thermal regulators functioning at 73% efficiency. Officer Reynolds. Most unsatisfactory, chirped Commander Vril, his exoskeleton clicking as he approached the console. The Praxian's 4 eye stalks swiveled independently, somehow conveying judgment, despite their lack of recognizable expressions. On Earth we call that good enough, Commander, Mack replied, taking a swig from his coffee mug emblazoned with the words Universe's okayest explorer. Vril's breathing slits fluttered in what Mack had learned was the Praxian equivalent of an exasperated sigh. Your species' comfort with mediocrity continues to perplex me. The outpost housed an unlikely crew. Mack, the sole human representative, Commander Vril and his Praxian assistant Tekka, who resembled armored praying mantises with blue-green exoskeletons, Dr. Lonix, a gelatinous viridian who communicated through color patterns and synthesized speech, and Lieutenant Graz, a towering Keltorian whose thick hide and tusks gave him the appearance of a bipedal rhinoceros who'd discovered weightlifting. "Where is your organism, Reynolds?" Graz rumbled as he ducked through the doorway, his massive frame barely fitting through the human-designed entrance. "The furry one." "You mean Max?" "Probably napping in my quarters," Mack answered, suppressing a smile. As if on cue, a golden retriever trotted into the common area, tail wagging enthusiastically. The dog paused to stretch, front paws extended and rear in the air, before padding over to Mack and plopping down at his feet. Dr. Lonix pulsed a concerned purple. "I still cannot fathom why Central Command permitted you to bring this creature. It serves no apparent function." The translator rendered Lonix's colors into a vaguely feminine voice. "He's a certified companion animal," Mack explained for what felt like the 100th time. "Earth studies show having pets reduces stress and improves mental health during long deployments." "Fascinating inefficiency," Vril commented, keeping a prudent distance from Max. "You maintain a subordinate species that provides no labor, protection, or sustenance, consuming resources solely for psychological comfort." "Pretty much," Mack agreed, scratching behind Max's ears. The dog's tail thumped against the metal floor panels. Tekka, the youngest Praxian, approached cautiously. "Does it perform any tasks?" "I've observed it sleeping approximately 18 Earth hours daily. He fetches things sometimes. Plays catch. He loves belly rubs." Mack demonstrated, and Max immediately rolled onto his back, legs splayed in complete surrender, tongue lolling out comically. Graz snorted. "Useless in combat. No natural defenses." "Not everything's about combat, big guy," Mack replied, but the intercom cut off their banter. "A priority transmission from Central," announced the Outpost's AI. "Security classification, urgent." The crew gathered around the holographic display as a grim-faced admiral materialized in blue light. "Outpost Zeta-12. Intelligence reports indicate Morkarian raiders operating in your sector. 3 vessels, heavily armed. Their trajectory suggests they may have identified your location. Reinforcements are dispatched but will not arrive for 72 hours. Implement security protocols immediately." Admiral Kovacs out. The transmission ended, leaving the common area in stunned silence. Morkarians? This far into Allied space, Tekka's mandibles clicked anxiously. "Raiders, slavers, scavengers," Graz spat. "They sell captives to the highest bidder. Or worse." Vril's eye stalks contracted in what Mack recognized as the Praxian expression of concern. "Our defensive capabilities are minimal. We were not established as a military installation." "Well," Mack said, standing up and checking his sidearm, "looks like our boring research mission just got interesting." Max, sensing the change in mood, stood alert at Mack's side, his normally playful demeanor suddenly attentive and watchful. Dr. Lonix rippled with nervous yellow patterns. Perhaps they will pass us by. We're hardly worth the effort. Maybe, Mack replied, not believing it for a second, but I think we'd better prepare for visitors, and something tells me they won't be the friendly kind. Dawn on Zeta-12 wasn't much of a spectacle, just the faint brightening of a perpetually murky sky. Mack completed his perimeter check, Max trotting faithfully alongside him as they circled the outpost's modest grounds. I fail to comprehend why you insist on physical inspection when our sensors are far more reliable, Vril commented, watching from the safety of the airlock. Because, Mack explained, sensors can be fooled, jammed or hacked, eyes and ears. Not so much. He tapped his temple. Old Earth military wisdom. Primitive. Vril dismissed, but there was a note of uncertainty in his voice. Inside, Dr. Lonix was analyzing the latest geological samples, her body rippling with excited blue patterns. Officer Reynolds. Observe. These mineral compositions suggest this moon was once part of a much larger body. Fascinating implications for stellar formation in this region. That's great, Doc. Mack replied, checking the small armory. 6 pulse rifles, 3 sidearms, and a handful of shock grenades. Not exactly an arsenal. Lieutenant Graz entered, carrying equipment that looked comically small in his massive hands. Your weapons are toys, he declared. On Keltor, we train with living predators from age 3. My ceremonial blade has tasted the blood of 17 worthy opponents. Remind me never to attend a Keltorian dinner party, Mack quipped. You would be honored to receive such an invitation, Graz replied, completely missing the joke. The cultural misunderstandings were daily occurrences at the outpost. Just last week, Tekka had been horrified to discover Mack used water to clean himself. You deliberately expose yourself to the universal solvent. While Mack had nearly gagged watching the Preaxians perform their monthly molting ritual. After lunch, a particularly awkward affair where everyone except Mack required entirely different environmental conditions to consume their nutrients, Mack started barking at the eastern perimeter fence. Silence the creature, Vril demanded. Its acoustic emissions are disruptive. He doesn't bark without reason, Mack said, grabbing his binoculars. He scanned the rocky terrain but saw nothing unusual. Graz, you're on patrol with me. The Keltorian grabbed his weapon with alarming enthusiasm. Finally, action. They found nothing but strange impressions in the dust that Graz identified as scout probe landing gear. Morkarians sending drones to assess their defenses. When they returned, Tekka was trying to teach Max to follow simple commands with limited success. The organism fails to comprehend basic instructions, Tekka complained. I've repeated calculate planetary orbit trajectory 17 times. Try sit instead, Max suggested, demonstrating. Max immediately sat, tail wagging expectantly. Such limited functionality, Tekka observed with disappointment. That evening, as Mack ran diagnostics on their communications array, he received an encrypted message from an old military contact. It contained profiles of the Morkarian raiders heading their way, Captain Dresk and his brothers Vask and Kresk, notorious throughout 3 sectors for their brutality. They've hit 6 outposts in the past month, Mack informed the crew during their strategy session. No survivors at the last 3. What do they want? Dr. Lonix pulsed anxiously. Everything. Technology, weapons, supplies. They'll strip this place bare. And they're known for taking captives, some for ransom, others for slave markets on the rim. The Preaxian hegemony does not negotiate with terrorists, Vril stated firmly. And the Earth Defense Force doesn't leave people behind, Mack countered, so let's make sure it doesn't come to that. As they discussed defensive options, Max dozed peacefully under the table, occasionally twitching in his sleep. That creature, Graz pointed at the dog, will be the first casualty. It has no awareness of danger. You'd be surprised, Mack replied cryptically. Max isn't just a pet. Then what function does it serve? Vril demanded. Mack smiled. Let's hope you don't have to find out. Later, as artificial night fell over the outpost, Max sat on his bunk, cleaning his sidearm. Max curled up beside him. They don't get it, do they, boy? He murmured, rubbing the dog's ears, But that's okay. We don't need to convince them, not yet. When, outside, something moved in the darkness beyond the perimeter lights. They're watching, waiting. The morning brought confirmation of their fears. 3 Morkarian vessels detected at the edge of the system, approaching on an intercept course. Estimated arrival, 18 hours. We should abandon the outpost, Dr. Lonix suggested, her body cycling through anxious color patterns. The research data can be transferred to portable drives. Negative, Vril countered. Our escape pod lacks sufficient range to reach the nearest safe harbor. We would be more vulnerable in transit. Then we fight, Graz declared with disturbing enthusiasm, sharpening his ceremonial blade. Mack spread a schematic of the outpost across the main table. We've got some advantages. They'll want to take the place intact, which limits their weapons options. And they'll underestimate us. They're used to hitting scientific outposts with minimal security. The day passed in tense preparation. Mack and Graz set up defensive positions while Vril and Tekka programmed the security systems. Dr. Lonix, surprisingly resourceful in crisis, converted some of her research chemicals into improvised incendiary devices. Your Morkarian profiles indicate they prefer direct frontal assault, yes? Vril asked, mandibles clicking nervously. That's their usual approach, Mack confirmed. They're arrogant, used to outgunning their targets. Then we shall employ asymmetrical tactics, Vril decided. Praeaxian military doctrine emphasizes misdirection and strategic withdrawal. In my language we call that running away, Graz rumbled disapprovingly. In mine we call it living to fight another day, Mack interjected before an argument could erupt. A disaster struck mid-afternoon. Tekka, checking the external sensors, triggered a previously undetected perimeter mine, likely left by a Morkarian scout drone. The explosion shattered his right forelimbs and damaged his carapace. Dr. Lonix stabilized him in the medical bay. He'll survive, but he cannot participate in defensive operations. Her coloration shifted to medical diagnostic purple. The exoskeleton fragments require 26 hours for proper fusion. Mack surveyed their diminished forces grimly. That leaves 4 of us combat capable. 3, Vril corrected. Dr. Lonix must continue medical support for Tekka. 2.5, Mack amended, glancing at Vril's slender build. The Praeaxian commander was brilliant with technology but hardly a front-line fighter. I count as 3 warriors myself, Graz boasted, flexing massive arms. We're still short-handed for perimeter coverage, Mack said, studying their defensive plan. A critical gap had opened in their security network. Someone needed to monitor the eastern approach, the most likely vector for attack, according to their intel. I'll reassign Max to guard duty, Mack announced. The statement was met with stunned silence, broken by Vril's incredulous clicking. The quadruped? Your recreational organism. This is not an appropriate time for human humor, Officer Reynolds. I'm not joking. Max will take the east perimeter monitor position. The creature sleeps 18 hours daily and chases its own waste extraction appendage, Vril protested. It cannot possibly serve a security function. Trust me, Max said firmly. Max is trained for this. Graz made a sound suspiciously like a laugh. When the Morkarians come, your furry friend will be hiding under your sleeping platform. Max shrugged. We'll see. As dusk approached, he led Max to the eastern sensor station. The dog watched attentively as Mack adjusted the simple alert system, a modified proximity detector connected to a silent vibration pad on Max's collar. You remember your training, buddy, Mack murmured, scratching behind the dog's ears, just like the simulations back home. Max's eyes, suddenly alert and focused, seemed to hold an intelligence that had been absent during his lounging days at the outpost. He gave a single, quiet woof. From behind them, Vril observed skeptically. This is most irregular. Officer Reynolds, Central Command will receive a full report regarding these unorthodox security protocols. Write whatever report you want. After we survive, Mack replied. Max stays on guard duty. As night fell completely, the outpost lights dimmed to minimal emergency illumination. The crew took their positions. Graz at the main entrance, Vril monitoring communications and internal systems, Lonix attending to Tekka in the sealed medical bay, and Mack floating between positions. Outside, the wind picked up, howling around the outpost's metallic structures with an eerie, almost musical quality. Within this natural camouflage, other sounds emerged, the faint whine of anti-grav systems, the click of magnetic grapples on metal surfaces, the subtle scrape of boarding equipment being assembled. Movement detected. Western quadrant. Vril reported tensely, by multiple signatures. Confirmed. Graz growled, readying his weapon, the boarding operation commencing. Stay alert, Mack ordered. They'll try to breach from multiple points simultaneously. In the darkness of the eastern perimeter, Mack sat perfectly still, ears forward, eyes fixed on the seemingly empty terrain beyond the fence. Not barking. Not moving. Just watching. The first explosion rocked the western wall. The battle for Outpost Zeta-12 had begun. The western wall buckled inward with a screech of tortured metal. 3 armored figures stormed through the breach, weapons raised, Morkarians, their scaled skin gleaming dully in the emergency lighting. They moved with the confidence of predators who'd done this many times before. Pathetic defenses, the lead raider sneered, his translator rendering his harsh language into stilted standard. This will be quick. Peace. From his concealed position, Graz triggered the first trap, a localized EMP burst that sent the raider's targeting systems haywire. The Keltorian followed it with a roaring charge that caught even the Morkarians by surprise. His massive bulk slammed into the lead raider, driving him back through the breach. Not so quick after all, Graz bellowed, swinging his ceremonial blade. In the command center, Vril monitored the situation with growing alarm. Additional hostiles approaching from the north and south, estimated 16 raiders in total. They're testing our defenses, Mack said, checking his weapon. The main force will hit where they perceive weakness. As if on cue, proximity alarms blared from the eastern perimeter, Max's station. On the security monitor, Mack watched 6 heavily armed Morkarians approach the seemingly undefended section. Your pet has abandoned its post, Vril observed, mandibles clicking nervously. Oh, as expected. Mack didn't respond, eyes fixed on the screen. Where was Max? The Morkarians reached the eastern door, setting up a breaching charge with practiced efficiency. Their leader gestured to his subordinates, clearly outlining their entry plan. None of them noticed the golden shape moving silently through the shadows behind them. Until Max attacked. It happened so quickly that even Mack, who knew what was coming, was momentarily stunned. 1 second, the dog was creeping forward on his belly. The next, he was airborne, 200 pounds of muscle and specialized training slamming into the Morkarian leader. The raider went down hard, screaming as reinforced canine teeth locked around his throat. Before the others could react, Max was moving again, a blur of golden fur delivering precisely targeted attacks to vulnerable joints and exposed flesh. In the command center, Vril's eye stalks extended to their maximum length in shock. That is not normal canine behavior. E9 Combat Unit, Special Operations Division, Mack explained calmly, watching Max systematically disable a 3rd raider. Genetically enhanced strength, specialized combat training, intelligence augmentation. Max is a weapon system disguised as a pet. You deceived us, Vril accused, though there was more awe than anger in his voice. A need-to-know basis, Mack replied. And now you know. On screen, Max had disappeared again, melting into the shadows as the remaining Morkarians fired wildly into the darkness. Their previously coordinated assault had devolved into panicked chaos. Reynolds. Graz bellowed over the comm. I require assistance. Multiple hostiles breaching the main entrance. On my way, Mack confirmed, grabbing extra ammunition. Keep monitoring Max's sector. The Praxian nodded, eye stalks still fixed on the eastern perimeter feed in fascination. Mack sprinted through the corridors to join Graz, who was holding the main entrance against 4 Morkarians. The Keltorian was bleeding from several wounds but fighting with undiminished ferocity. Together, they drove back the assault team, Mack's precision shooting complementing Graz's brutal melee attacks. When the last raider retreated, Graz turned to Mack with newfound respect. "Your pet," he began, binding a gash on his arm. "It fights with honor." "He's been my partner for 3 years," Mack explained, reloading his weapon. "Best soldier I've ever worked with." The facility's comms crackled to life, an external transmission forcing its way through their security protocols. A harsh Morkarian voice filled the corridor. "Attention outpost personnel. I am Captain Dresk. Your resistance is noted but futile. Surrender now, and some of you may survive as valuable merchandise." Mack activated the response channel. "This is Officer Mack Reynolds, Earth Defense Force. Your initial assault has failed. Dresk, cut your losses and leave." Harsh laughter echoed through the speakers. "Oh, yes, so brave words, human. But my brothers Vask and Kresk are preparing our main force now. What we sent was merely a scouting party." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving an ominous silence. "He speaks truth," Graz conceded grimly. "These were not their elite warriors." Vrill's voice came urgently through the comms. "Officer Reynolds, return to command immediately. You must observe this." The external monitors showed the Morkarian vessels disgorging combat pods, at least 30 more raiders deploying with heavy weapons and assault shields. "Well," Mack sighed, "looks like the real party's about to start." On the eastern perimeter camera, Max had reappeared, calmly sitting by the bodies of 6 incapacitated Morkarians, his muzzle darkened with their bluish blood, waiting for new orders. Their main assault deploys in 3 waves, Vrill analyzed, mandibles clicking nervously as he studied the tactical display. Standard Morkarian doctrine, suppression teams, then breach specialists, followed by capture squads. The outpost trembled as the first wave hammered their defenses with concentrated fire. Armor-piercing rounds punched through the reinforced walls, forcing the defenders to scramble for cover. "We cannot withstand a prolonged siege," the Preaxian stated flatly. "We don't need to," Mack replied, checking the status of their remaining defenses. "We just need to make this so costly they decide we're not worth the effort." Graz, applying sealant to a wound on his flank, grunted agreement. "Raiders seek profit, not martyrdom." The command center view screens showed the Morkarians deploying mobile shield generators, creating protected lanes for their advance teams. A textbook assault formation, pressing toward the outpost from 3 directions simultaneously. "Officer Reynolds," Vrill's voice held an unfamiliar note of deference. "What are your combat unit's capabilities against this force level?" "Now you're interested in what Max can do." Mack allowed himself a small smile. "Activate emergency protocol Echo 9. Vrill complied, his slender fingers dancing across the control panel. Throughout the outpost, lighting systems failed, plunging the interior into darkness save for minimal emergency indicators. Environmental controls disengaged, Vrill confirmed. Life support maintaining minimal functions only. Mack lifted his wrist communicator. "Max, execute Operation Nightshade." Outside, Max had been patiently waiting in the shadow of a damaged sensor array. At Mack's command, the dog's demeanor changed instantly. Gone was any trace of the lounging pet that had so bemused the alien crew members. His movements became fluid, purposeful, predatory. The Morkarian advance team never saw him coming. "Remarkable," Vrill breathed, watching the thermal imaging feed. The organism's body temperature regulation allows near invisibility on thermal scans. K9 units were engineered for stealth operations, Mack explained as Max systematically eliminated the perimeter guards. Specialized musculature, enhanced olfactory processing, tactical intelligence upgrades. In darkness, Max is practically a ghost. On screen, the dog moved from one position to another, always attacking from blind spots, disabling enemies with terrifying efficiency before melting back into the shadows. The Morkarians began firing wildly, their formations breaking as panic spread through their ranks. "They cannot track him," Graz observed with grudging admiration. The creature understands tactical movement better than many warriors I have known. The communicator crackled again as an enraged Captain Dresk broadcast to his forces, "It's one Earth beast. Use your thermal trackers. Grenades in sectors 3 and 4. He's rattled." Mack noted with satisfaction. Time for Phase 2. "Dr. Lonix, status?" The Viridian scientist's voice came through, steady despite the circumstances. "Preparations complete. Officer Reynolds, deploying countermeasures on your mark." "Execute." "Execute." Outside, hidden emitters released Dr. Lonix's chemical compound, a modified research substance that reacted violently with the specific atmospheric processes in Morkarian breathing equipment. They're not lethal, but extremely disorienting. The effect was immediate. Raiders staggered, ripping at their breathing masks, coordination completely disrupted. In their confusion, they failed to notice Mack systematically disabling their shield generators. "Shields down in Sector 3, Vril reported. Sectors 1 and 5 compromised. "Graz, time for some Keltorian hospitality," Mack ordered. The massive alien grinned, revealing intimidating tusks with pleasure. He hefted his weapon and charged toward the nearest breach point, where disoriented Morkarians were struggling to maintain their assault position. "The brothers," Vril said suddenly. "Thermal imaging shows 3 figures retreating to the command vessel. Identification consistent with Captain Dresk and his siblings." Mack nodded grimly. "They're cutting their losses." He activated his con. "Mack's priority target, the escape vehicle. Delay launch protocols." The dog acknowledged with a single bark, already changing course to intercept the retreating Morkarian leadership. The view screen showed Max closing the distance to the Morkarian shuttle, moving with incredible speed across the rocky terrain. Captain Dresk turned just in time to see the golden blur launching toward him. "What is this creature?" The Morkarian captain screamed, his panic clear even through the translator. Max's attack was precise, powerful, and astonishingly methodical. In seconds, all 3 Morkarian leaders were incapacitated, their escape prevented. "Extraordinary," Vril whispered, eye stalks extended in amazement. "Simply extraordinary." Outside, the remaining raiders, seeing their leaders captured and their forces in disarray, began a chaotic retreat. Several threw down their weapons, raising arms in surrender. Mack leaned back, allowing himself a moment of relief. "And that, Commander Vril, is why I brought my dog to space." Dawn broke over Outpost Zeta-12, illuminating a landscape transformed by conflict. Debris from the battle littered the perimeter, and scorch marks darkened the outpost's exterior walls. Inside, the crew was gathered in the common area, wounds treated and immediate repairs underway. "Official casualty report," Vril announced, consulting his datapad. Morkarian forces, 14 requiring intensive medical intervention, 9 with moderate injuries, 7 with minor injuries. 3 commanding officers in custody. "And our side?" Mack asked, wrapping a bandage around a shallow cut on his forearm. "Eka remains in recovery. Lieutenant Graz sustained multiple lacerations, but refused treatment beyond basic disinfection. You have minor injuries. I remain unharmed. Dr. Lonix reports chemical irritation from countermeasure preparation." "And Max?" Mack looked around. As if on cue, the golden retriever trotted into the room, seemingly unbothered by the night's events. His coat had been cleaned, showing no evidence of the fierce combat he'd engaged in. He flopped down next to Mack's chair with a contented sigh. "The combat unit appears fully functional," Vril reported with what almost sounded like respect. "A remarkable recovery efficiency." "Back to being just the pet, eh?" Mack scratched behind Max's ears, and the dog's tail thumped against the floor. Dr. Lonix pulsed thoughtful blue patterns. "I must recalibrate my understanding of Earth species. If this is a dog, what must your actual military organisms be like?" Mack laughed. "Max isn't typical. He's specially bred and enhanced for military operations. Most dogs are just dogs." Yet even in his dormant state, he maintained constant vigilance, Vril observed. "I reviewed the security logs. Each time he appeared to be merely sleeping, His auditory monitoring remained active. "Good boy," Mack told Max, who responded by rolling onto his back for a belly rub. Graz approached cautiously, eyeing the now docile animal with newfound respect. "On Keltor, we have a tradition of honoring exceptional warriors with ceremonial scars." He hesitated. "Would the combat unit accept such an honor?" "He prefers bacon treats," Mack replied seriously, "but he appreciates the thought." The communication array chimed, signaling an incoming transmission from Central Command. A stern-faced admiral appeared on screen. "Outpost Zeta-12, we've received your distress signal. Reinforcements are 8 hours out. Status report." Vril stepped forward. "Admiral, I am pleased to report the Morkarian threat has been neutralized. All hostile forces have been captured or repelled. We are secure." The admiral blinked in surprise. "All hostiles neutralized. Our intelligence indicated 3 Morkarian vessels with full combat contingents." "Yes, Admiral," Vril confirmed. "Thanks largely to Officer Reynolds and his specialized combat unit." The camera panned to show Mack, with Max now dozing at his feet. "The dog?" The Admiral's expression shifted from confusion to understanding. One of the K9 program graduates. "Well done, Reynolds. Though you might have informed your crew about your partner's capabilities." "Need to know basis, Admiral," Mack replied with a shrug. Besides, the look on the Morkarians' faces when they realized what they were dealing with was worth it. After the transmission ended, Tekka joined them from the medical bay, his damaged limbs now encased in regenerative sheaths. He approached Max cautiously. "I attempted to teach this organism to calculate orbital trajectories," he admitted. "I now see my error. One does not instruct a superior intelligence in elementary functions." "Oh, Max can't calculate orbits," Mack clarified. "He's enhanced for combat, not mathematics." "Then my error was even greater," Tekka said. "I mistook specialized excellence for universal capability." He extended a functional limb toward Max. "I apologize, combat specialist." Max licked the Praxian's appendage, causing Tekka to freeze in alarm. "It's a sign of affection," Mack explained quickly. Tekka relaxed slightly. "Unusual but acceptable." As the day progressed, the outpost began to return to something resembling normalcy, albeit with a significantly altered dynamic. Mack noticed Vril modifying the duty roster. "I have reassigned Max to permanent security detail," the commander explained, but with appropriate rest periods, of course. "Of course," Mack agreed, hiding a smile. Later, as Mack was filing his official report, Graz approached with uncharacteristic hesitation. "On my world, the Keltorian began. Warriors often keep small, venomous creatures as status symbols. But they serve no practical purpose." He looked at Max, now curled up in a patch of sunlight. "I see now that Earth practices are superior. Your companion conceals his deadliness beneath an appearance of harmlessness." "That's one way to look at it," Mack conceded. That evening, as the crew shared a meal together, their first relaxed gathering since arriving at the outpost, Dr. Lonix pulsed curious green patterns. "Officer Reynolds, I must inquire, if this is a standard Earth military strategy, deploying deadly organisms disguised as harmless companions, are there other Earth creatures serving similar functions? Perhaps that small pink organism you keep in the hydroponic garden?" Mack nearly choked on his drink. "The hamster? No, Fred's just a regular hamster. Not every Earth animal is a secret weapon." "Are you certain?" Vril asked seriously. "After witnessing the combat unit's capabilities, I find myself questioning all Earth organisms." Under the table, Max opened one eye, gave what looked suspiciously like a doggy smile, and went back to sleep. A deadly weapon disguised as man's best friend. Either content in a job well done. In the detention area, Captain Dresk nursed his wounds and muttered darkly to his brothers. "When we escape, we will avoid all human outposts. Their security protocols are unorthodox." "Agreed," Vask whispered. "No one warned us about the furry one." In his quarters that night, Mack tossed Max an extra treat. "Not bad for a day's work, partner." Max caught the treat mid-air, tail wagging happily, once again just an ordinary dog, until the next time he was needed.